Hi, my name is Monica, and today I'm going to read a book to you called Sweet Like Sally. It's a Peanuts book, and it was written by Charles M. Schulz, illustrated by Vicky Scott, and adapted by R.J. Craig. So, thank you to those individuals for letting us read this book to you today and sharing the joy of reading with children. So, we'll go ahead and get started. Charlie Brown's sister, Sally, has a very sweet side. She's sweetest to Linus, her sweet baboo, but she is also helpful, kind, and forgiving, especially to herself. What else is sweet about Sally? Well, Sally lends a helping hand, even when no one asks her to. When Snoopy imagines he is in the Foreign Legion, he pretends to crawl across the desert in search of water. The sun beats down, buzzards circle overhead. It all seems hopeless until Sally appears, holding his water dish. "You look so kind of thirsty," she says, interrupting his daydream. "What's the fun in that?" Snoopy pouts, but he drinks some water anyway. Sally was only trying to help. Sally is polite to her big brother, Charlie Brown, but not always for the right reasons. "Dear brother, will you please read this book to me?" she asks in her sweetest voice. "It's for my book report." "Sorry, Sally, you have to read it yourself," Charlie Brown says. Sally frowns. "What's the point of asking nicely if your brother won't do your homework?" Sally is generous with compliments, even if it means talking to a brick wall. "You're good at school, you know that?" she says to the school building one day. "And you have very cute steps." No one has ever said that to the school before, so it starts to blush. You think school could actually blush. uh, Sally is also really good at looking on the bright side. "What's 2 times 2?" Charlie Brown asks, quizzing her for a math test. 10,000,000, Sally guesses. When her brother tells her it's the wrong answer, she still congratulates herself. "I'm getting closer," she says proudly. Being sweet to herself is one of Sally's many life philosophies. She only chooses ones that work in her favor. "I've developed a new philosophy, big brother," she tells Charlie Brown. "It's what do I care?" "Well, I'm very happy for you," Charlie Brown says. "What do I care?" Sally shrugs. When it's time for her show and tell at school, Sally isn't shy. She brings her favorite person and the sweetest kid she knows next to Linus, herself. When Sally wants something, she goes for it. "I'm too busy to talk," Sally says when one of Charlie Brown's friends calls. "My brother isn't here, so I'm moving into his room." It might not seem very sweet that Sally tries to take her brother's room every time he leaves town, but that's when her "what do I care" philosophy comes in handy. Smack! Sally is a tough cookie, but she has a softer side. She wears her heart on her sleeve, and her heart belongs to Linus, whether he likes it or not. It all started when Sally was a baby. She crawled up to Linus and fell in love at first sight, Being a sweet baby, she did the only thing that she could do. She gave Linus a kiss, but he wasn't happy about it. Sally refused to give up. As she grew, so did her love for Linus. When they played hide and seek together, Sally followed her heart instead of the rules. She didn't hide at all. Linus finished counting to 10, opened his eyes, and saw Sally still standing there. "You're supposed to be hiding," Linus said. "I like to listen to you count, sweet Baboo," Sally said. "I'm not your sweet Baboo," Linus said, and rolled his eyes. Sally would have given anything for Linus to call her his sweet Babouette. When Sally saw a football game on TV, she decided she had to play football with Linus. It looked like such a sweet game. "I'll kick the ball to you," she said to Linus. "You run down the field, and I'll try to hug you." "Tackle," Linus said. "Football players tackle each other." But Sally didn't want to tackle Linus. "Hug," she said. "Tackle," he corrected her. "Hug," she insisted. "Forget it," Linus said, walking away. "Stupid game," Sally shouted and kicked the football out of sight. To Sally's surprise, football wasn't sweet at all. Even so, Sally was still sweet on her sweet Baboo until one February morning. "Sally, get up. It's time to go to school," Charlie Brown said. But she wouldn't get out of bed. "Linus didn't send me a Valentine's Day card," she cried. "He broke my heart, and I'm never going to school again. If you see my sweet and sour Baboo, make sure he knows how mad I am." "Sweet and sour Baboo, good grief," said Charlie Brown. A few days later, Linus got stuck in the snow and couldn't get to the bus stop. In that moment, Sally forgot that he hadn't given her a valentine or called her a sweet Babouette or hugged her. Linus was and always would be her one and only sweet Baboo, and she would always be his sweet Babouette. Sally sprang into action. "I don't care how much it costs," she told Snoopy and Woodstock. "Bring him back." Sally's plan worked. Snoopy and Woodstock brought Linus home safely, and finally Sally got what she wanted. Chop, 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 chop. A valentine from Linus. "Here," Linus said the next day, handing it to her. Sally stared blankly at him. She'd never been so sweet to her before. "Wah!" she suddenly sobbed, startling him. "Excuse me," she added in her most polite voice. "A tear came to my eye." Being sweet and courageous and determined and devoted and smart finally paid off. Why? Because this time Sally's sweetness really came from the heart. And that's the end. I hope you enjoyed Sweet Like Sally. Thank you for listening.